as mentioned, I am Lucy. I'm going to help us with our Docker setup today. So we're all coming from really different backgrounds, so the first thing I want to do is just give a really general, high-level introduction of what is Docker and why we're going to be using it. And then I'm going to show you the very basics of how to build your own image. But thankfully, Eshen's done all that work for us, so ultimately all we're going to be doing is pulling the mined image from Docker Hub. And then I'm going to show you, so that's kind of a rate limiting step. It's going to take a little while, especially for all of us, if we're all pulling that image at the same time. So while we're waiting for that to download, I'll just show you two brief demos, just reiterating kind of what Eshen already did with how to launch a Jupyter notebook and Jupyter Lab. And the other is this really cool feature of PyCharm. There's this Docker integration feature, so you can set a remote interpreter. So I'll show you how to do that as well. All of that's not, I mean, it's going to take like 20 minutes. It's not a lot. And then if you run into any issues or if you get stalled up or lost or anything like that, the last 40-ish minutes or just whenever, the goal is for everybody to get on the same page by the end of this. So a bunch of us are going to come around and help you with your specific setup, and I'll put on the instructions back on the screen. So if you get lost, don't worry. Okay. So, but the other rate limiting step here might be installing Docker. So if you want to get that process started so that by the time we get to the pulling of the Docker image, that would be good. If you go to docs.docker.com and you scroll down, you should find these three options. And then install whatever appropriate for your computer. Okay. So what is Docker? Well, it's a tool that's designed to make it easier to create and deploy and run applications by using containers. That's a lot of words. What does it actually really mean for us? It allows you to create computing environments that can be replicated on any computer. And just like what Yarrick was talking about with portability, that's that idea of taking a piece of software and being able to run it exactly as it was intended on any other computer. So why are we using it? Well, so that we can all get on the same page. So it's going to create a shareable computing environment so that all of us can have access to the same tools, and it's really important for this type of collaborative hackathon-y environment. But there are other reasons for scientists to use it. From the point of view of data collection, it would allow you to create easily replicated experiments that can be run on any computer. From the level of analysis, it would allow you to create a pipeline with all the necessary code and all the dependencies to run that code, to replicate figures and statistics, and like potentially replicate the entire paper. That would be really cool, and I think Mateo's done that. And from the replication point of view, so if you want to replicate somebody else's analyses, or even just going back to some of your old scripts, I know sometimes I try to run some of my old scripts and nothing's working anymore. So this allows you to replicate, but without installing anything and changing your current setup. So the true basics of building your own image, you could potentially follow the tutorial that I've outlined in the README on the GitHub page, but it boils down to 3 steps. You make a Docker file, which is really just a text file. You build the image, and then you run the container from that image. So what is a Docker file? It's really just a set of instructions for building a Docker image. So you can see this is an example Docker file, and what I want to point to here is this from statement. What this is calling is a base image. So it's an image that was already built, and it's like Docker approved. So there are other base images that you can use. And if you go to hub.docker.com and then explore, you can check out the other available base images. And then the rest of this is really just the layers on top of that base image. And so once you have a Docker file, which really, again, is just a text file, how will you build the image? If you have Docker launched on your computer, all you'll need to do is navigate to the directory where the Docker file lives and go docker build /t, whatever you want to name it. So in this case, I've named it CDL. And so that's really it. That's the command to build the image. And then once you build the image to run the container, you would do docker run, and then this IT runs it interactively. You assign a port, you name it. The convention for naming the container seems to be the uppercase of whatever you've named the image. And this, you create a mount point, so you map, in this case, desktop to the mount point on the container. And then you reference the image that you want to run. Okay. And then let's say you leave that and you want to open it again. All you have to do is do docker start, whatever the name of the container, and then to attach your terminal, you go docker attach the name. Okay. And then there are some other useful commands that are available on GitHub. But the critical thing for us is really this. So the setup for us is you just need to launch Docker. So hopefully everybody's launched Docker. Has everybody already done this? Has everybody pulled the image? Okay. Okay. So launch Docker if you haven't done this yet. And then just go to terminal and then just run the command docker pull ejolly /mine-tools. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have sort of like a general conceptual
Yeah.
question. So how like an image or a container on Docker is like different in any folder that you upload on any iCloud in general?
I don't know. I mean, it's different because it's like its own virtual environment. So it's like a complete, like all of your like operating systems and all of your dependencies are running in the container. People compare it more to like virtual environment or virtual machines. And the analogy there that I found was useful is that a virtual machine is like a house. So it provides you shelter, but all of the functionality, like it's its own system basically. So you have your own plumbing, your electrical, and everything like that. But a Docker container is more like an apartment building. So you can have many different containers, but they're all served under the like apartment building infrastructure. So there's like shared plumbing and electrical and stuff like that. Is that okay? Any other questions? Okay. Has anybody tried to run this yet? And is it downloading currently? Anybody trying it?
Does anyone have Docker installed on their computer? One person.
And have you tried to download this yet? Everybody? Everybody's good. Everybody's done. Oh, this is like the quickest tutorial ever. Oh, okay.
Sorry. Yeah. Oh, well, yeah, so it doesn't work for Windows 7, so there's some other configuration that you have to do in BIOS or something like that, and I haven't figured that out yet.
Okay. All right.
So does it work for Windows 10 Home or only Windows 10 Pro?
No.
We'll come around and help with your specific setup, hopefully.
Okay, if you have Docker installed, raise your hands. If you don't have Docker installed, wait, keep your hands raised. Simon didn't say. Okay. If you don't have Docker installed, look at someone with their hand raised. All right. Now go. Okay.
Sorry, I think the problem is with Windows. People who couldn't do that is with Windows.
All right.
And Mac is pretty easy.
Who does not have Docker installed? If you're
they're all Windows
You all have
users.
Windows? It's the same issue.
Yeah.
We have a solution.
There's
You have a
another
solution.
issue that happens way before,
Gotcha.
but it's not that hard.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe we should have a separate Windows party since we have a solution.
That sounds good.
Does that sound good?
Windows brings people together.
All right.
Okay. Well, it sounds like most of us. Yes.
I have a
Mhm.
I have Docker installed. I'm not really sure what it's supposed to look like when you launch it.
Oh, it's
I did do this, and
Yep.
things are happening.
great. So there you go. That's the critical
Okay.
point.
But
Yeah.
I mean, if I click on Docker, nothing happens.
Yeah, so it actually becomes
Yeah.
an icon on the.
Up at the top.
Oh, it's just that. Okay. Yeah.
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 Okay.
So this whale.
Yeah.
You see that?
Yes. Yes, I have.
Yeah.
For the purposes of this tutorial, so I can't use Docker on the cluster I'm using, so I'm using Singularity.
Mhm.
Chill.
That's an Eshin. Yeah.
Yeah, you can convert that.
Okay.
Wait, but the officially supported mined way is so if we don't use this Docker image, then we don't make any guarantees with respect to tutorial work. You know, and we can debug this Docker image, but not every possible Singularity or Docker image. With that caveat, we can do whatever we want as long as you're willing to, debug on your own. But if you want our debugged version, then use this.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. So to create the container, you'll do, as everybody done this too, Docker run the IT, assign a port, name it, create the mount point, and then reference the image. So I'm going to get out of this and I'll show you what that looks like. So if you just open terminal, so I've already run this command. And now I have this root prefix, and that lets me know that I'm in the container. So there are some more slides here that show a couple of useful commands here. So I just want to point out what Eshin did earlier. So he's created some aliases. So all you have to do is just, once you're in the container, just type JL. And then go over and open up localhost 9999 in this case. And then this opens up Jupyter Lab. And so now I can run this in that container. So cool. I should also note you can map that mount to anywhere. So if you want to map it to the repo, if you've already pulled the repo for this, it's a great idea. The other thing that I wanted to show you is PyCharm. So PyCharm is very similar. It's like a MATLAB-ish. Yeah. This one? Yeah. Do you want me to walk? Oh, sorry. Put it bigger. Better.
Do you mean
The prefix?
No, the command to build.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Oh, for PyCharm, you mean this? Yeah. So PyCharm, if you want something that's like MATLAB-ish, like if you want the debugger and like the GUI, and it's a nice jump-off point if you've only been used to MATLAB previously. It's an IDE, so it's an integrated development environment. So it's meant for developing programs and developing packages, that kind of stuff. So I will show you. I've already configured this so that it is running a Docker. So it's using a Docker container as a remote interpreter here. But I just want to show you some features. So if you were to, this is, I should also mention, this is just the professional edition, which is kind of annoying. It is not free. It's free for you guys probably if you have an EDU email, but it's not free for everyone. So that's, caveat. So if you go to Preferences and go to Build, Execution, Deployment, go down to Docker, all you'd have to do is just add and then Docker here. And then now you'll be able to see all the containers that are running, all the images that you have that you've built, and it's all within this GUI, so that's kind of nice. The other feature that I wanted to show is if you go back to Preferences and go to the project and go to the project interpreter, you can assign the interpreter here. So all you would do is go over to Add, down to Docker, and then it shows you the images that you have available to for the containers that you want to run. And so I've got it as Eshen's image. That just made another one, but I don't want that. Just to show you the nice features of PyCharm, I really like PyCharm, if you can't tell. You can debug in PyCharm. So if I set a breakpoint within this for loop, and you go debug, example debug, it's going to pull whatever the default interpreter that you have set in your preferences. And then you can see in this debugger window all the variables that are defined at this point. If you go to console and then go down to here, you can actually interact with that environment at this point. So with all the variables that are defined at this point. So that's really nice. So you can change these up potentially if you want. Another feature is this walk in or step into the code, and then you can step back out of it. So if I want to step into this function that I've created, it's just adding 4 to whatever the variable is. It will navigate to where that function is defined, and then I can change the variables in here too. So it's like all of the variables are defined at that point, and then you can change around the environment, or you can interact with the environment at that point. So that's really great. It's super useful, I find. Then you can step back out of it, take away that breakpoint. If you just put your cursor somewhere further down, like outside of the for loop, you can jump over the rest of those iterations and jump right into the next part of the code. So I really like PyCharm a lot. If you want to get started with PyCharm, I have a completely different tutorial that I'm happy to share, and I'm happy to help you with that setup. Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Is not on the,
It's not yet, but it will be. It can be. The Docker tutorial is, but the separate PyCharm one is not. So in summary, Docker is a very useful tool for scientists because it allows us to share computing environments, and that allows for replicable experiments and analyses pipelines, figures, etc. And if you follow the tutorial on our GitHub page, if you have any questions, just reach out to me or Eshen or whoever. Yeah? Mm-hmm.
I just want to clarify that I understand how these things are linking together. So like with a virtual machine, I would normally think that I'm like looking into a virtual machine and like using PyCharm that's on that virtual machine. But in this case, you're using a PyCharm that's on your machine.
That's right. And it's just calling the container. That's right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Okay. Well, I'm going to put the instructions up as promised. And if anybody is having issues with the setup, just let us know. A bunch of us are available to try to help you with the setup. Yeah.
Just in terms of best practices for here, so do you recommend that we pull the mine repo and then like map the Docker onto that, or?
It doesn't matter necessarily, but if you want to do that, if you want to mount it wherever you have like your repos, that's fine. It shouldn't matter though. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Well, that was really quick.
Maybe though we should spend some time, if anyone is having trouble running stuff, we could spend the remaining time we have for this to kind of debug and get everyone's computer set up. Does anyone want help getting it set up?
The Windows people?
Okay. Cool. So we'll just walk around.
I'm sorry?
What consider as like complete? So as long as we can launch the Jupyter lab with this,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
is